have Flavia Dima from Bucharest Experimental Film Festival, Romania. We have Ilson from London Shore Film Festival. We have Andrew Norton from Raina Distribution, based in Finland, but from UK. And we have Sarah Adam, she has a freelancer curator based in Germany and work with also with Hamburg Coast Film Festival. And we can start from you if you want to present yourself and your job. Well, a brief introduction. I mean, yes.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for the invitation. Thanks to Anna's for the invitation. I don't know how extensive I should explain. Yeah, I'm a freelance curator. I'm working for different festivals, different institutions. So, as you might hear, every festival is different, but also somehow all the same. So I can speak for festivals, I can speak for curating for cinema, I can speak for curating for institutions, which sometimes have programs outside of cinema. I'm also doing like curated programs, not only programs based on current submitted works. So that is also a little bit a different thing if you look at how films find their way into the cinema or into the festival circuit. My focus is mainly on documentary, experimental and avant-garde films, not short films, but as well feature-length films. I'm with the Wall is a Screen, which has an event tomorrow evening, so I'm also much involved into site-specific screenings of short films in the public space, art in the public space, and I'm working as well as a film mediator and film educator. So that's roughly my field of expertise.
Okay, thank you. If Andrew want to say something.
Yeah, once again, thank you for inviting me. My name's Andy. I work for Raina Films, which is a festival distribution company based in Finland. We work mainly with documentaries, feature documentaries and short films of all genres, but mainly experimental shorts, documentary shorts and animation. And yeah, we create a distribution strategy to help the filmmakers navigate the world of festivals, which can be quite complex sometimes, aiming to give films a long and successful journey on the festival circuit. We handle all aspects of the festival run, festival strategy, representing your film at industry events, submissions, screening fees, getting waivers from these nice people for your film, material delivery. Yeah, I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Phil?
Yeah, so I'm Philip Ilson, from Artistic Director and co-founder at London Short Film Festival. Just a bit on the background of the festival and myself. I was running a film club in London, which was very much under the radar, slightly alternative, a bit underground, which was a short film night which mixed music and film and DJs, that kind of thing, and that kind of was how the festival emerged from that film club. So when it was started, it was quite much like a hobby. It was something fun to do with some friends, which I think quite a lot of festivals maybe start in this fashion. But then the festival has grown over the last 22 years, which is scary, into what I hope is internationally recognised. We get a lot of international submissions as well as a lot of UK submissions. About 6,000 films come through to us every year, and we have a selection committee, which I'm part of the selection team, so I do watch submissions and I am involved in the final programmes. But the festival is also so much bigger in terms of other stuff that we do. We have an industry programme, but we also, being in London, because I came from a slightly sort of alternative film club background, we try and partner with other film clubs in London that are emerging, other collectives that are setting up their own nights or their own events. And then we do continue to do some sort of music crossover film events with live music or with DJs. Weirdly, this is my second time to Riga. I came here in the early 2000s with a club project, which was with projections and short films, and it was very strange. It took place in a car showroom somewhere on the outskirts of Riga. I can't remember where it was, or if that place is even still there. But yeah, so that was about 20 years ago. I'm sure no one was there at the event. Yeah, so, and I have worked for other film festivals as well. I was short film programmer at the BFI London Film Festival for 16 years. And I'm currently also doing some programming for the D&R British Film Festival, which is in France, which is only British films, and they only select 7 short films, so that's quite an easy one to deliver. Out of the 6,000 that we get for London, we select about 200 for London Short Film Festival. But yeah, that's enough for now. I think I'm sure other things will come up as the discussion continues.
Flavia?
Yes, I'll try to keep it short. I also have a background in cineclubbing, so that's also how I sort of, worked around the first entrances into a cinema the first time, where you see somebody coming to see something you've programmed is like very exciting and something that I tried to keep alive very much. And I also worked at a very small film festival in Romania, somewhere up in the north of the country, which was mainly programming short films made by, or exclusively short films that were Romanian in origin. And that's sort of where I developed my ethos for the way that I program. I sort of very much carry it with me, is that I always try to program films made by really up-and-coming, like 19-year-olds, 20-year-old filmmakers who were in school. Some of them were not in school. I was very much trying to offer the competitional slots to people who I really felt needed this kind of boost, this kind of exposure at the beginning of their careers. And some of them, like Lucia Kiko, for example, she went on to win Cine Fundación Award a few years later. So really people who I noticed were truly in need of like getting like a boost at the beginning of their professional careers as filmmakers. And in the cases of some of them, of course, you know, they went on to do really nice things. Others, well, of course, you also kind of see this thing as well. You see people quitting their jobs or quitting cinema altogether. There's also like a combination of this. So yeah, that was my beginning. And well, when I was approached to join the team of BF, which is the Experimental Film Festival in Bucharest, Romania's largest, I very much wanted to bring the very kind of same work ethics to really try to showcase the works of up-and-coming experimental film artists, but also trying to keep into account this very specific challenge that I believe is, well, not typical just to Romania, but maybe to large parts of the so-called former Eastern Bloc, is that we often find that we do not have the same offer in cinemas as, let's say, Western or Central European countries. So there's always kind of a delay. It's a delay that was also caused, I believe, by the many long decades that our countries have lived under dictatorships, and that we didn't have proper access to the cultural output of, let's say, not just the United States of America, but truly also France, Spain, etc. So especially in experimental cinema, very much so in Romania, there was very restricted access to it during communism. So at the same time, you also have to cover some kind of bases that really nobody really has paid too much attention to. And let's say the first 20 years after the revolution were a little bit too crazy. So yeah, these are the two things that I try to bring into my work as a programmer at BF, and together with our colleagues we have like a very nice and horizontal structure that we have, all of us have like a really strong voice within the collective. We've also grown the festival a lot, so initially it was much more short film focused, but now we also have like a feature film competition which is dedicated to first and second features, so again sort of keeping this principle of filmmakers that are just starting out in their careers, and also retrospectives. So yeah, I hope I didn't go on too long.
No, it was
like, yeah,
okay.
sure,
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. No, it's nice to have a different kind of approach, experience, and jobs, because every panelist has a different vision about what to do with the short films because of their, about their festivals, the topics of the festival, and their experience. I'm interested also about you. How many filmmakers we have here, or future filmmakers or students? Okay, okay, okay. So you are. I can imagine you are interested about what to do with your film or with your future film, because when you think about a film festival, sometimes. Well, every kind of film festival are different rules, different topics, different kind of films, and we can start to talk about this, about how to navigate it inside the short film world, about the film festival submissions. Well, when I have a film, what can I do? I put the film, like I submit the film with a call for entries of a festival. What I want to ask to you about the different experience of your festival, of your well, I can say strategy, or about how they work, about which kind of platforms or other kind of submissions you have, the cost of this, and about the screening fees, I mean, and the rules about from Bucharest, from London, and the point of view from a distribution company, from a freelancer. And we can restart from you, Flavia, if you want. Or
Already, or maybe,
no, okay.
Yeah, maybe Andrew
Okay,
first, and then
start from Andrew. Yeah.
So what's the question?
The question is about no, was more about the festivals. I mean, about the submissions. Yeah.
Okay, so once your film is finished, you're going to need to decide what the most important thing is. What do you want from the film? Are you looking for an audience? Do you want to make money from the film? Are you looking for prestige? Is it important to be a prestigious festival? Do you want to go to Cannes? Do you want to win an Oscar? Or do you want to just get the film out there? And then, so once you've decided that, that's when you start thinking, right, okay, also what is the film about? Where's it going to fit? Not every film is going to go to Cannes, not every film is going to go to IDFA or London Short Film or an experimental film festival. So you have to be quite precise in thinking about, especially if you're distributing the film yourself, you really need to have a strategy in place of deciding what's the film about, which festivals does this fit, do some research, think about how much your budget is, how much time you've got to spend on this. If you've got, because well, I read something earlier that it can turn into a part-time job. No, it'll turn into a full-time job if you let it drag you in there and you start researching every festival. Ooh, here's a festival in Cannes, but it's not Cannes Film Festival, but it's got Cannes in its name, so I'll submit there. So you really need to, and I'm waffling a little bit now, but you need to research. The very first thing you need to do is research which festivals you're going to submit to, and then, is that enough as a starter? Because I can talk for the next 45 minutes about where we go from there, but I know there's more coming later that I will develop.
Well, from a point of view of festival, how do you work with your your submissions, and yeah, how it works? Yeah.
I mean, I suppose one thing that filmmakers need to realise is there's no rules of how to run a film festival. You don't buy a book that tells you how to run a film festival, so every single film festival will have their own way of how they select films. So just from London Short Film Festival, we have a team of 12 programmers, well, selection committee, and then we have a couple of sort of head programmers, and then, as I said, I'm involved in selection. But we don't work with pre-selectors. Some festivals may work with pre-selectors, where people are just watching films and then they say yes or no. With the selection committee, we work with the people that we pay them a wage to work for the festival, so we interview them. You know, again, many festivals might just use volunteers that are available that want to watch a few short films. So we feel that the selection committee have got to understand the sort of work that we're looking for, the sort of work that plays well at London Short Film Festival, so they've already got an understanding of the films that we are sort of, you know, hoping to programme. I mean, in terms of what sort of stuff comes in, obviously we're a general short film festival, so we show documentary, we show experimental work, artist work, drama. We have a sort of specific strand for sort of comedy films, for horror films. We have about 30 programs of shorts across the festival. In terms of the work that we receive, I would say the most, in terms of genre, would be, if you want to call it a genre, would be drama, short film drama. And this is the most uninteresting work that we see, because there is just so much drama out there. It's just relentless. And many of these dramas are very good. There's nothing wrong with them. You can't be too critical. They might be well made, they might be well acted, or they might be technically good. But we need something different to that. We need something that's cinematic, something that we've not seen before, which I know is an abstract kind of concept. How do you say that we're looking for films that we haven't seen before? But it's kind of something that you're always thinking when you first press play on the film. And we're also looking, to have a diversity of filmmakers within programs, whether that's from countries across the world that maybe we don't get too many films from, but also within the UK. We have a diversity of ethnicity across the UK, so we want to make sure that we're representing those communities, and also that's within the programming team as well. We have a diversity within the programming team. That's really important for when we're putting the programs together. So, sorry, I'm the one that's waffling.
No, it's okay.
But yeah, in terms of how do we come up with that final selection, there's a lot of, our programming team are quite spread out. We have someone in Berlin, we have someone in Chicago, we have someone in Manchester, there's a few in London, so there's a lot of Zooms. A lot of the platform we use allows us to share notes, and then we can tag different programmers, say, oh, you should take a look at this, or someone else on the team should take a look at this. And then we do try and come together physically. Obviously, that's not possible for every programmer on the festival, but to come back together physically for a couple of weeks to do the final selection for the festival. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Well, and particularly how it works for example, for a filmmaker to submit the film, the cost of this, the period, and this kind of things, because I think they are useful for someone, for a director.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose at the end of the day, we just want to see films. It's obviously there is a fee. We do discounts and fee waivers. It is good to meet filmmakers at festivals. But ultimately, it's about what's on the screen when you press play, as to whether it's going to be in the festival or not. We work with Film Freeway, which many festivals do. Does that answer the question? Does that answer the question?
Yeah. It's just to inform what
but again,
I
other
have to do if
festivals
I want to submit my film to London Shore, for example. Yeah.
But other festivals may have a different way that they make decisions and decide on the final programs.
Can I just ask you a question
about
this? Because it's a question that we get asked as distributors quite often, and I answer it in a certain way, but maybe coming from a programmer, do films that are submitted through Film Freeway, do you ever use any of the other platforms?
No, we only use Film Freeway, but I know other festivals use.
Can you guarantee that every single film that has gone through Film Freeway gets watched?
100%, yeah. I think any festival that doesn't watch the films is not a festival that you should be.
No, I was just asking on behalf of them, because I know that a lot of filmmakers always ask me that, so now I'm passing that.
Yeah, no, I do. We do get.
I wasn't the one.
Yeah, you do get people that think, oh, there's no way all those films could be watched because there's so many of them. But yeah.
How many films do you receive?
6,000.
6,000.
Yeah.
Wow. And do you want, Flavia, about Bucharest?
For us, we're kind of new in the submission business, let's say, in the sense that up to 2021, including that edition, the festival had a curated approach. So what we did is we worked with various distribution companies or sales agents, but also mainly with the selections of other, mainly A-class film festivals, but not limited to that. And we just made a gigantic research of festivals from all over the world, not just Europe. And we really spent most of our time asking for films that had already been screened somewhere. That being said, going to submissions for BF is not necessarily something that we did to become a kind of festival that is much more focused on international premieres. We're the kind of festival that really, and even amongst each other, we try not to play into this whole hierarchical game that we know is very difficult to play for filmmakers as well. Is like, oh, do you need the regional premiere? What is the region? Because even, especially like in Eastern Europe, they kind of open up. It's like the Balkans.
We will talk about this, about the difference.
So we try not to play into all of these games, and I think what you said about the waivers, and there's so many filmmakers that you encounter working with a lot of very difficult barriers. So I think, for example, me, when I try to give out waivers, it's always I try to keep into account what country is this filmmaker coming from? Is this country currently facing hardship in any single sense of the term? Are they also experiencing hardship or coming from a background and expressing this to us when they're asking for fee waivers? Because, I mean, I think it's very important to also try to keep an even playing field. So at the same on the one hand, you have this contrast between, trying to keep yourself sane after watching hundreds of short films, which is truly not an easy task, but at the same time, each one of those hundreds of short films that you watch is so incredibly important to not just their director, but also the larger teams, depending on the size of the project. So that brings with itself a certain respect that you need to bring, but at the same time, you also need to safeguard yourself from, like really keeping it together. You're also really oftentimes exposed to very dark subject matter, which has to do with the state of the world as it is right now, but also it's like a general theme, whether or not we're talking about documentary fiction, especially experimental cinema, I believe. When it tries to go into more narrative terrains, it often approaches very hard to swallow topics. So it is something very taxing for the programmers oftentimes, but it's also very, very rewarding. But that being said, also just to complete what Andrew was saying about the fact that there's like 7 Cannes short film festivals, I urge you to be very careful with this, especially because there are some festivals that ask for a lot of money for submissions.
There's so many red flags, and that is one.
And I also work as a film critic, and a few years ago I published an investigation about fake film festivals, which is truly a thing. There's festivals that only exist in somebody's backyard, if at all. They only exist to give you PDFs, these so-called laurels that you can copy-paste on the promotional materials of your film. And there's a lot of people who are just starting out who are not aware that this is like an entire scam machine, so I think it's really important to say this out loud. You only get a PDF, and maybe there's one person who gives you an award about this, and I urge you to do your research properly, because there's and I think even there's a very large expose about this in Hollywood Reporter from a few years back, with a filmmaker who traveled to a different country, transatlantic, to discover that her film was in a festival that didn't actually exist. So I urge you to be really cautious with this, and I will also say this, that as a programmer, and I don't know if this also is available for you, but when I get one of those posters that has 1 trillion laurels, I automatically have a sense that maybe it's perhaps not the best film out there. Perhaps not a film that is going to make it into our final cut, to be very honest with you. I hope I wasn't too incoherent with my answer, but I mean, at the end of the day, we're very horizontal. All of us watch each other's short lists, so at the end of the day, I mean, I think all of us clocks in at around 700 short films per edition at least. So it's still very much the heart of our festival, even though we've expanded, as I said, and we have like really... And what makes the final selection for us is that we have thematical programs. So we have 7 short film programs where we're much tinier in comparison, but we always construct programs around a specific theme. Sometimes it's topical, sometimes it's not. Depends on the times and on the materials that we're working with and the ideas that inspire us very much. But that being said, sometimes that does come with a caveat, is that there's some really, really great films out there, but they don't fit any of the themes that we find, and we have to say a hard goodbye to some films that we really, really love, but that don't fit the program. So I'm saying all of these things about rejection because I know that this is maybe on the top of everybody's minds in the room, and to some extent. And a lot of people write to us when they get like the emails saying that they didn't make it to the final selection. It's always like really tough to answer them because if you understand their frustration. It's very human, it's very normal. And it's just out there to say nobody has anything personal with films that get rejected. At the same time, it's very hard also to respond. There's people who, of course, would like to have feedback and so on and so forth, and we would gladly like to offer that. But again, when you have such a large volume of films and you're just one single person that also has to see all of these films, but also be alive, eat, sleep, and ideally also spend some time with friends and family, it's a bit difficult. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. And both you, Andrew, for example, in this moment, how many films are you managing about for your distribution company? How many festivals you manage to submit these films? I mean, you use of platforms, more platforms. Which kind of platforms? Because I suppose that a lot of filmmakers are interested about. Well, I use Film Freeway. Maybe I have to pay attention to not find fake festivals because there are on Film Freeway, there is Short Film Depot, there are other platforms, and your approach as a distributor, and yes, and how many?
I think at the moment we have about 20 films in our catalogue, but they're all at different stages of their cycle, so some will drop off soon and some have only just started. There's quite a few that are really new and are still looking for premieres. So our approach is generally that we will approach most festivals directly through the programmers. Quite often we know them personally, or we know them through meeting them at industry events, or at least through email conversations over the years. And I think this is I guess this will come up later, but I can answer it now, about this thing about having a distributor or not having a distributor.
Yeah, we will talk about it, yes.
So do you want me to keep that, or am I allowed to say something now?
Oh, well, it was one of the points, but yeah,
okay,
if you want to...
Just because it's
well,
this,
we can
because
talk now, yeah.
We act almost as a filter, because like Flavia just said, it like you're getting... Part of the problem with this is that 90% of the emails that you receive from festivals are going to be rejections. And it can be quite heartbreaking and exhausting. It's a rejection, and it's not necessarily a reflection on your film. It's just that it doesn't fit this festival this year, or it doesn't fit this theme. But there is always it can take a while, but there will always be festivals out there for your film. So in a way, yeah, we act as a filter to protect you from that, but also going back to contacting, not only is it contacting festivals, not only is it time consuming, it's almost like we have no shame, because this is our job. So it's okay for us to say, I know that a lot of people don't feel comfortable asking for waivers or like pitching a film, whereas we've grown tough skin over the years that it's okay to do this, and it's expected of us that this is what we'll do. Is that what you were asking? Okay. Yeah. Is there anything else that you need me to talk about?
Well, no, we will talk more about distribution and the difference between have or not.
But yeah, so we generally approach most festivals directly, but then often they will say, yeah, please submit this one. You can have a waiver, but can you put it through Film Freeway or Short Film Depot or FestHome? I guess those are the three most popular platforms, so that we have all the films and all the information in one place. And there I'll stop at that point, okay? Yeah.
And well, from your point of view, Sarah, about as a film curator, when how was your experience with submissions and with to watch the films? Previously, we talked about we watch all the films we received. And sometimes for our filmmakers, it's hard to believe that their films will be watched because of the numbers. I mean, thousands of short films. And currently, are you working for a festival or are you watching submission? if you want to say something about your experience and your job.
Yeah, so first maybe coming back to what Flavia also said and what was already mentioned is that I think for me, and I'm now in a comfortable role of only a curator, I was also festival director where I had to work with all the administrative stuff regarding films, which is something definitely linked to it, but I prefer it more on the curating side. It's a little bit more comfortable. But I will maybe come back to the administrative part as well for you to understand how much effort a film festival puts in the submissions and the film they receive. Because I think that also needs to be, well, it would be nice if that would be appreciated by filmmakers. But it's a game, like we already said, but you don't have to be part of the game, I think, in a way that there are some 4 players, there are a lot of pressure, which is sometimes really unnecessary. That's why I like this title actually quite a lot. It's called Navigating the Festival Circuit. It's not festival strategy, because I don't believe in something like a festival strategy, because it has to do also a lot with luck if your film is going to be screened at a festival or going to be screened in a curated program somewhere else. So I think navigating is the right thing, and like you said, putting thought into it, where I want to go with my film, what is my film about, where do I want to be seen, which discussions do I want to have about my film. If it's a shallow film festival with just a red carpet, but you're making a film that speaks from your heart or has personal experiences in it, I don't know if you really want to go there. It might be a disappointing experience later on then. So I think really having an idea about the festival world, what festivals are there, and then submitting your films. But don't be shy for submitting. I would also say, like, submit a lot. You will get a lot of rejections, like you also said, but I think that's also part of the experience. And regarding curation, what I, for example, can add, also look at festivals, and I'm now speaking for Kassel, for which I'm currently curating at the moment. So Kassel has its own entry platform. You can't find them on Film Freeway. So that's already a big filter the festival has, and that's why I also like to work for the festival, because people have to know that this festival exists. People have to put in the time to put their film on their entry platform. However, they don't have to pay for it. So I think I'm not a big fan of Film Freeway and all these other platforms, because people, it's just a click and like, I don't know, 2 or 3 euros you have to pay, or sometimes other festivals even more. But that might make it too easy and might make it seem too easy for films to be entered in a festival. I really think it's worth putting some thought of what the festival profile is. And I mean, you don't have to spend like hours and hours. It can become a whole job. But also, I mean, we're all intelligent people looking for 5 minutes on a festival webpage might already tell you quite a lot what the festival is about and how the festival profile is. So take the time and do that, because we watch your films, so it would be nice if you have an idea about the festivals as well. Yeah, maybe I leave it at that so that we can move further ahead. But yeah, one thing, I'll come back to it. I took some notes of things that were said, which is really interesting discussion. Yeah.
Well, we talk about official competition, out of competition programs, and genre films. I mean, because it's interesting about the topics of different films, about what can I do with a festival, with a distribution company, because if I submit my film in a wrong festival, I mean, if I put a fiction short film in a documentary film festival, I paid, yeah, it's not good. And I want to ask to you all, how is the best deal with this kind of films, and the difference between competition and out of competition, also for a filmmaker. I mean, if it's better to have topic films about something in a out of competition of a little one than not in the main competition, or or there is some not strategy but something that is better to do with genre films. I mean, if I have a sci-fi and horror films, I have a very little budget movie because. For example, at my festival, I receive a lot of short films with a very little budget. They are very good work from students, but I don't know what to do, and they are because the difference with the other titles is huge, and it's difficult because the space for this kind of directors is enough. I mean, it's not enough in the cinema, in the festival world, and I want to ask you about the current approach, and if you received films that are not interesting to you, and it's better to indicate another kind of destination. Yeah.
I mean, again, going back to this idea of every festival is different. I mean, with London Short Film Festival, we are very audience focused. We do obviously have some filmmakers attending. A lot of UK filmmakers come. We don't get too many international filmmakers attending. So being in London and being audience focused, the competition programs are probably the least important part of the festival. We have, and so we keep the competitions quite small. We only have 4 competition programs, 2 UK and 2 international. But then, like some genre programs do very well, the Midnight Movies is always a big sellout. We also have specific programs around very low budget work, which may be similar to what Hamburg does with the, is it the 3-minute quickies? Yeah, so very short, quirky films. A lot of those audiences for those programs are really, really big. We have a What the Fuck program, which is always a popular one as well. So those kind of programs are the ones that really sort of grab people's attention at the festival. We also have 4 or 5 separate documentary programs which are really popular, which we do at one of our venues that's associated more with documentary. Whereas other festivals maybe have 10 or 15 competition programs, because it's obviously an important part of the festival to have those competition programs. Although I was saying they're the least important, the flip side to that is that because they are competition, we do screen those competition films at the BFI South Bank, which is probably one of the more prestigious cinemas in London, and because, I mean, they also only give us 4 slots, which is why we have 4 competition. It wouldn't really feel right to put competitions in a smaller venue if some of them are at the BFI South Bank. And I think because those film programs are at that venue, then that venue attracts audiences that would go to see work at that venue, that which year round, which would be for the audience that come to that venue, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think we are quite lucky in the sense that we do have quite a big, we have built quite a big following in London over the last 20 years, and also taking the festival out to the outer boroughs as well is quite important for us, to take the festival to areas of London that maybe wouldn't get this kind of work, and attract those local communities in those parts of London.
And well, from your festival experience about experimental films, it's already a topic, I can say, yeah. But what you can say about other genre movies, and you received also other movies, and they are not, interested about your focus.
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of animation film, which is really interesting, but most of the times it's just formally and, well, let's say, stylistically really interesting, but it's not proper experimental cinema. It's like a really fine line between experimental aesthetics and the way that you also use montage, the way that you use more avant-garde techniques, the way that you try to innovate within the discourse of your film, and using something that is more abstract, but that has like a pretty big school of thought behind it already. So that's one thing that happens a lot, but I always make like a list of these films and I pass them over to the local animation film festival and say, hey, these are some things that we got that you guys might think are interesting. So I do that. However, yeah, we do get a lot of straightforward and like really, some people, I guess, just really, when Zara said, they just click the list on Film Freeway because they don't check, or I'm not exactly sure. Like for example, we got like a film about reindeer this year. It was a really interesting reindeer film, but it was more fit for a National Geographic program than for us, I would have to say. So that means that we do get some, like misplaced, because for us it's kind of easy. I mean, we know very clearly what to search for in terms of formality and of aesthetics, so we kind of really catch on pretty fast if the film is like, let's say, a conventional narrative film, whether or not it's fictional. But yeah, I think the more substantial way to put it is that with competition and non-competition, I mean, for us it's kind of simple, right? With everything goes to the competition if it's not a heritage film. So for us, the retrospectives are out of competition, of course, everything else is in competition. But it very much depends on the festival. Again, before, when I was only programming national shorts, I would try to put the films that had either their absolute premiere had been shown in a school program but barely had any screenings at all. Those were the ones in competition, and I would put the ones that had some sort of recognition already out of competition to give a shot to other people. But then again, I guess that really ties in with what Zara was also saying about really researching the festivals that you apply to before you go there. And yeah, also I'm the kind of person that has some ethical problems also with using Film Freeway. I have to say, I'm not, even though we use the platform, I'm not a huge fan of it. And I'm not a huge fan of it especially because they do profit a lot from these fake festivals or non-prestige festivals. They could take measures to stop it, but they don't, but that's another discussion. And I'm not such a huge fan of the fee system either, but at the same time, you know, it very much depends on what the financing sources of the festival are. If you come from a country that unfortunately doesn't spend too much money on its culture, like Romania, you will have to use these fees to be able to sustain your event. So it's not something that we, you know, do to profit off of the backs of filmmakers. Obviously, there are a lot of people that do, in fact, do that. So that's why I underline again, it's important to do your research. But in other cases, it's like the minimal required amount that you can make to be able to pay your programmers and your team, even just a little bit to have like some money for your minimal operational costs to be able to do the event in the first place. So there's a balance between the two. Luckily, in some countries, there are fully subsidized events and fully sponsored, and they can afford not to have an entrance fee. But I think, it also very much depends on the country where the event is happening, the type of event. For us, I mean, as being an experimental film festival, and the word experimental being in the title of the festival, it does scare off a lot of people who believe, this is one of those events for like 5 freaks. So they don't really, there's not a lot of sponsors who are very keen on supporting us because they believe that we're showing like very avant-garde, very abstract, very figurative things, when it's not at all the case. I mean, something we always underline when we're discussing about our selection every year is that having a narrative and a film being experimental are not mutually exclusive. There's a lot of narrative films that are experimental films that are very narrative, and it really depends on how you take a look at it. And I don't know, for example, La Région Centrale, Michael Snow, right, one of the most famous experimental films out there. It's the protean, archetypical story, the first story ever told in human civilization, and that is the story of day turning into night and night turning into day. First story ever told. That's the story of one of the most cryptic and most, White Tower experimental films out there. So it really just depends on your perspective.
Okay, I wanted to pick up on what you were saying about staffing on festivals and also relating to money, because I think, obviously the current situation is a lot of places are struggling, and the UK has never been that great in its funding of film festivals. There was a big festival that was going for 30 years, Encounter Short Film Festival, lost all their funding last year, so they had to take a year off. The plan is that they're coming back this year, but everyone is struggling. And with London Short Film Festival, although we do work with a team of about 12 programmers, the actual full-time staff, who are all freelancers working for a certain period of time during the year, the actual full-time staff on the festival, there's 2 of us year-round, with one part-time person that's involved in festival producer, so she would be dealing with the submissions and the Film Freeway platform and dealing with the programmers, making sure they're getting their batches. But then, yeah, my role and then the co-director role is very much sort of how is this festival going to survive? You know, we're doing the funding applications, we're talking to sponsors, you know, we're talking to venues. It's a kind of year-round job to make sure that you know, we can do another festival next year. I mean, yeah, we have some extra staff coming on, you know, towards the end of the year, like marketing, someone doing social media, but, you know, they're roles that sort of come much closer to the festival. Many festivals, you know, have many more staff members than that, but again, it depends what sort of funding or support they're getting. And sometimes being in a smaller place can help. There's a festival in a smallish town near Manchester called Bolton, the Bolton Short Film Festival, and he's doing quite well because he can get, it's quite a, you know, there's not much going on in Bolton. It's, you know, he can get some hotel deals to put up guests, he can get local business support, you know, he works with the local cinema to get the space, and yeah, his kind of attitude is, yeah, we're doing fine, we get quite a lot of sponsorship coming in from local businesses, whereas, you know, being in London, that's really, really hard. Even though we're in a big city, we're up against thousands of not only other film festivals, but arts festivals, music festivals, there's cinemas, there's, you know, it's you're literally, you know, yeah, just up against so many other things that are happening in the same city sort of every single week, every single day. So yeah, I suppose it's just people being aware that we're not all in our penthouse apartments. You know, we're trying to make this thing happen on the money that is available to make it happen. And you know, for me, that's as I said, because I started the festival, it's a passion. You know, that something that I'm very passionate about, short film and about festivals and events. So I really want it to happen and to continue.
And well, from your distribution, Andrew, do you manage some themed films about some topics or some genre films?
When we started the company, our aim was that 50% of our films would be made by women, immigrants to Finland, or come from a background that is tended to be underrepresented. So that it was more about the filmmakers than the issues, or the themes or the genres. But it's kind of difficult. I mean, and COVID kind of knocked. I mean, at first we were focused only on Nordic films, and COVID kind of knocked the whole business plan out of the window, and we rethought things, and now we take films from all over the world. We still try to focus on underrepresented filmmakers, and I guess we're in a lucky position that because we're based in Finland, so we have good contacts with all of the Nordic countries, which are generally, but even there it's changing, well-funded culturally. And so they do tend to have funding that means that they can pay the full fee that we normally charge. We don't have a fixed fee because when you're talking to a filmmaker from Sweden, they're not going to have the same budget that somebody from Ukraine or Kenya or Latin America is going to have. It's just not possible. But we would never turn down a film just because a filmmaker can't afford what in an ideal world they would pay us. So we try to use the funding, the money that is coming from the well-funded filmmakers to subsidise some of the filmmakers from less well-funded industries, if that makes sense. But in terms of topics and themes, it's I'll briefly say about the features. It's becoming more difficult because of the big events that have been happening in the last 4 or 5 years. The ripple effect of that is now that most films or most festivals are looking for issue-driven stories. It doesn't have to be about Ukraine or Gaza, but there's been this ripple effect that means that it has to be something like that. And it's getting harder and harder to deal with films or to pitch films and get them on a really good festival run that are personal stories. That's just the way it's become. With short films, Yeah, we tend to look for something. We did fiction, and as Phil said, that drama. I don't know if it was this. We weren't very good judges of fiction shorts, or like you said, it's just that it's really hard to make a drama that is interesting. I think people. It can't just be a fiction for a feature fiction made into 7 minutes or 8 minutes or 15 minutes. There has to be something else around it. So even our fiction films now have some, maybe more something experimental, or there's a hybrid element to it. But we tend to mainly focus on documentary, experimental animation, and quirky fiction. What a horrible word! I wish I feel sick. But fiction with something different. It's not just a drama.
Okay. And about the experience about fake festivals, did you ever?
There's some like a few red flags. If a festival writes to you and says, "We've seen your film, and we love it. We're going to give you 50% discount on the waiver fee," they haven't seen your film and they don't love it. If they did, they'd just say, "Please send us a screener." So that's one. Any festival that is playing on the name of a big festival in that city, but isn't that festival, but is very similar, just be really careful. We're working with. Just to go back to what you said about film freeware, we have this term festival shopping. So filmmakers hire us to do this, but they still can't help themselves. I don't know. It's midnight. They've had a couple of drinks. I'll go and film freeware, and they start scrolling through the thousands and thousands of films at the festivals, and then start. Oh, it's just €10. It's just 10, and then before you know it, it's €1,000 that they've spent submitting on festivals that have got, I don't know, like Oscar qualifying next to it, but it's for black filmmakers only, or it's a documentary festival, and they haven't checked that. They've just seen Oscar, right, there goes my fiction shot. So just check those things. But yeah, so we're working with a filmmaker at the moment. We're supposed to be doing the submissions, and she sent me a screenshot yesterday saying, "I've submitted to Edinburgh International Film Festival." And I thought, well, Edinburgh is going through some stuff at the moment, and it was called International Film Fest of Edinburgh, and it was €94. And it's like, oh, what? Don't. It's like, another red flag is, so I looked it up, and it had competitions for everything, like documentary, screenplay, best actress, best actor, and it's like, where are they getting the money for all these competitions? Yeah, that's another red flag. But yeah, so there's...
Actually, one that I don't like, that sometimes even established festivals do, is this kind of like shortlist, which is something that they basically send an email out to filmmakers saying, "Oh, your film has made the shortlist. Here's the information if you want to attend the festival." So people get excited and they go, "Oh wow, I'm on the shortlist," and then they book to go, and then literally 2 weeks later they go, "Unfortunately, your film wasn't selected for them." And I know a couple of established festivals that do that.
There's
really
one
dodgy.
There's one that selects films and say, "We've selected your film, blah blah blah. All you need to do now is fill in the submission form and pay the submission fee." And it's like, well, there's no screening fees. You're not going to invite. There's no competition. So basically, you're asking the filmmaker to pay to screen your film. And I get that happens anyway, but it should be the other way around. It should be that we pay the submission fee, and then you curate, you go through, you select, you shortlist, not that telling us that you've selected a film that we haven't submitted, and then you ask us to pay a submission.
Thank you. And well, about you, Sarah, about this kind of things. I mean, from your experience in the festivals. As a curator, the idea to take some films or general films with topics, and with you work with this kind of films. I mean, with different sections, and the difference for you from your festivals between competition and out of competition, about the programs, the teams, and if you want to say something after this discussion, I mean, about this.
Yeah. Coming back to genre is actually quite interesting because, as a freelance creator nowadays, I work for a lot of festivals, and I mean it might be interesting for you or might be not, but just to roughly tell about the structures I experienced is if you work for a festival which has a very strong competition, like when I worked for Oberhausen, it was like really you're looking for the best films of that year, and you just select what you think are the best films. You discuss a lot in a selection committee, your team. You do this decision together, even though not everyone loves every film, of course. Whereas, for example, in Kassel, the work is very different. There's no competition. They're just nominated films, and the programs are curated programs, sometimes topical, sometimes aesthetically put together. So it's a very different way the festival works. And that, of course, reflects the work you do as a curator. Whereas, for example, then for Kassel you have to have more films in your mind, playing around with films. Might this film end up in this program? Also, if festivals sometimes show films in different competitions, that can be in a local competition, it can be as well in the national competitions. Other festivals say, no, we just show a film once, it has to be decided whether it's in an international or in the local competition. Then the selection committees confer with each other where the film is placed. And coming to genre, I would also encourage everyone or maybe not encourage, I would encourage everyone to think out of the box. You might, of course, the industry and the game sort of forces you to pitch your film in one sentence, and then you start with, oh, it's a genre film, it's a documentary film, it's an experimental film, but maybe I would love if we all free ourselves a little bit from these boxes as festivals as well, like the Kassel Documentary and Video Festival doesn't only show documentary films, it shows also experimental films, it shows also animation films, as long as they can be roughly defined as sort of documentarian. So if you have a film that you yourself would define as a genre film, for example, like a horror film, just enter it also to festivals which sound quite open. Don't enter it just to horror film festivals. And then don't be surprised if, for example, it is running in the youth 12 years plus section later on. That might really happen. So be courageous, think also out of the box for your film if you're thinking about genre film. And don't think too much about genre, and the festivals are looking for unconventional films. That's what we said before. It's a little bit sad that festivals are always looking for new things, and that we as curators are taken a lot by things we haven't seen. But it happens. I experience it every year with my colleagues, with myself, when I'm there like going, I haven't seen that before, wow. So you can still surprise people, but you don't have to. I mean, of course, there are millions of films out there are millions of film festivals out there, so not everything has to be totally new in regards to that. And maybe some tips for you, which you might be craving, I don't know. Coming to the topic of new, if you're entering your film, maybe also the film schools, if some of you are maybe at film schools, I hope they tell you about these little tricks that if you finish a film in December, put the credit on the day of January in the next year. And don't lie when you submit the film. Don't put in the film is from 24 in the submission online submission form, and then in the credits it's stating 23. Like we will notice that. And don't lie about the length either. That's also like there are foreplay on the festival sites and there are foreplay on the filmmaker sites as well. And then also these filmmakers sort of get red flagged if they lie about the length of the film, for example, or just get into that section or competition. And don't be too afraid about premiere statues, because that comes back to this sort of strategy, which I don't like, because a lot of festivals they really don't care if it's a premiere, if it's a national premiere. There are some big ones, but a lot of good festivals just want to show interesting works, just want to have a conversation about films, just want to have people encounter each other. It's more about a community than about an industry, and I think we all work for festivals, and this one here as well, it's more about community than about industry. Of course you can choose where you want to go, but a lot of festivals are also really, really nice places to be, really nice people to meet, and also nice places to attend, even if you don't have a film running at a festival. It's always worth visiting a festival if it's close by to your city, or if it's in your city. Then just go to the festival and see and meet friends or go with friends there. I can really, really highly recommend it, because I think also one of the best ways to get to know a festival is to really experience it.
And discover what happened inside the short film festivals, really, because if you've never been there and you want to realize a short film, it's a bit difficult to imagine what to do. And what's happened.
Yeah, we have.
Sorry, Phil.
I was just going to say we have no premiere policy at the moment, and we're also happy to show films if they're already online. It doesn't matter. I mean, we just want to bring people together to watch them in the cinema. So it's no. I mean, a lot of festivals in the UK, I don't think any of them have that premiere policy in place anymore. It's only the bigger European festivals like the Cannes and the Berlin, and But also with categories, I know a lot of on Film Freeway, a lot of festivals have all these categories, but we don't do that. It's just a film. It's like it's a short film, because people email and say, oh, we're going to send you a film. We think it would be good for this category in your festival, and it's like, well, we'll decide what category it goes into once we see the films and see how they fit together. It's nice to sort of, have, we have a midnight movies section, but maybe, a horror-themed film might go into another category because it fits that category.
We can restart from these last topics, because about the premiere, this kind of, if I'm a director and I read world premiere, international, national premiere, regional premiere, we talk about this. What is the difference between these categories? And I have this question: if I am a director or a distributor, I don't know, how long can a film remain? Without a festival. If I release a film last year, and this film I have the ambition maybe to go to a huge festival, to a big festival, and maybe this film remain there. In my computer, because no one festival will take my films, and the film becoming old. And what is the best thing to do with this film? And about the world premiere and national premiere, is better to skip some festivals and to go into other kind of festivals. For example, the one that Sarah said about film festivals with a lot of interesting films without premiere. And yes, this is the point about the premiere, and about your festival. What kind of premiere you're looking for, or from your rules? We can start from you, Flavia. Okay.
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, experimental film festivals, that's the #1 barrier, I believe. But also, a little bit considering the conversation that was had earlier about genre, and especially about dramas. It's not like I don't enjoy watching quote-unquote conventional films. For me, it's just really important, especially if I watch a narrative film, for it to be like a proper film. If I can watch your film without looking at it, if I can only listen to your film and fully understand it without needing to look at it, it's not what I guess most of us are interested in. So we're really, really interested and adamant on having films that are keen on working with their visuality. And with the movement, with the color, with the lights. These are all such important things to consider that sometimes, get glossed over. And that being said, genre and experiments are always really something that's worked really, really well together. As for stuck films, maybe, I don't know, I would say that being in a festival does not mean that your film is automatically good, and if you're not in a festival, that your film is automatically bad. So I would first of all try to deconstruct this barrier that a festival does not validate your worth as a filmmaker, first and foremost. And if it's, ends up in this, what you believe is a limbo, just put it out in the world with your friends. Like, gather all of your friends in your living room, do something about it that's not necessarily that. I know that maybe from a career perspective it's not the most exciting thing to do, but I think that also always thinking about your films in careerist terms is also something that tends to kill you as an artist slowly but surely. So I mean, maybe this is not exactly the answer that people are expecting from a professional and so on. Really, with age, I've just realized that sometimes some things are much more valuable, first of all. And then, with other festivals, at least in what regards us, I mean, we're kind of lucky with the fact that nobody else in Romania really cares about the kinds of films that we're showing. I don't want to be disrespectful to other peers, but there's really not any space for the kind of short films that we're showing.
And the Bucharest Experimental Film Festival also takes films already online, or no? Because sometimes directors say to me, send to me emails, my film is online, is a problem for you, and because sometimes directors want to show their films if they don't go to the festivals, and to send the links to all the friends or put online on Vimeo, and I don't know if for you is something different, and I ask also to the other.
I think it's a problem we only truly confronted once in that way. If that was the case and they just didn't tell us about it, they got through, I guess. But it only happened really once with us, and it was actually the case of a feature-length film that had been screened in a festival in a different town, which was no problem for us whatsoever, that it had already even had like a national premiere. But then it went to the VOD platform of that film festival with domestic release, and we said, okay, maybe that's a little bit too much, unfortunately. I mean,
Okay.
No, we have no. I mean, it doesn't matter if the film's online.
Okay.
There's no issue because, as you say, it's about people coming together to watch the films in a cinema with a screen and then talking about the films afterwards. You know, online has its own thing going on. You can probably reach a lot more people online with an online strategy, but it's a different vibe. It's not being in the same room as those people. So for us it doesn't matter if the film's online already.
But having said that, an awful lot of festivals.
A lot of festivals. No, that's true.
Will have in their regulations that it can't be screened online before the screening at that particular festival. So again, just check
the rules. Yeah.
And you have some from your regulations about premieres?
No, nothing.
It's really free.
We want to show good films.
I think with short film festivals, they're much more relaxed than festivals that are shown for M features. Much more relaxed. But if you're submitting to the bigger festivals, there is going to be, like you said, Berlin or Cannes or wherever, they are going to want a world premiere or an international premiere. But even then, if some of the bigger, not Cannes or Berlin or Venice, but some of the bigger festivals that say they want an international world premiere, if they really like that film, they will find a slot for it in one of their side programs out of competition. We worked with a film that premiered at Locarno, and then IDFA managed to find a place for it, and CPH Docs managed to find a place for it in Jihlavia, and so it's not necessarily.
Actually, that's true, because we had a film at London Short Film Festival that then, it was an international film, and then it appeared in Berlinale in the Generations Shorts programme. Either the filmmaker didn't tell them, but then, I don't know, we're quite on the radar. I think Berlinale really wanted it, they're going to show it, even though it had screened at another.
I think they're surprisingly relaxed, because going back to what you said about the length, their short programme is 30 minutes, but they showed a film of ours which was 31 minutes in flight, and I was amazed that I didn't lie. I asked them beforehand if they'd accept that submission.
Actually, there is one. I've just remembered there is one shorts in the UK, Sheffield Doc Fest. Their shorts have to be premieres.
Okay.
But that's
okay.
the only one, I think.
Is that? But that'll be a UK premiere. Is that
UK
right?
premiere.
Okay.
Yes.
And remember, these examples are quite unusual, so
Yeah.
it is best to like.
And for example, if Andrew, you have new films that the directors are very well, they are waiting for huge premieres like Venezia or Locarno or Berlinale, Cannes, and well, it's really difficult to go inside this kind of festival because the selection.
Yeah, the competition is huge, but we always have this competition with this conversation with them, and we just have to be honest and say that you're up against.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's better for them to go into selection for another little festival. You suggest this to?
No, we wouldn't say that. If they really want to apply for Cannes,
okay.
And you know, Cannes has a 15-minute section where it's free to submit, so they're not losing anything. And it's like, you know, they can go for that. They can submit to Locarno and Venice early enough. It's not that expensive. And then you haven't lost anything because there's still big festivals, and then there's the smaller festivals, the genre festivals, the niche festivals, and I guess this is going back to how old, the thing about when does a film become old, and as long as you don't lie, if your film hasn't premiered in 2025, it can become a 2026 film, but just remember to change the credit. But by that point anyway, you will have probably sent it to the festival. I don't know. What I'm trying to say is that if it's a 2025 film and it hasn't premiered, if you're following the usual strategy, the horrible word, you will have been looking for an A-list premiere or one of the bigger festivals. And so if it goes into 2026 and you haven't had a premiere, the festivals that you will then be submitting to won't care that it's a 2025 film generally. But if it goes into 2027 and you've not changed the credit, well, even if you've changed the credit, to be honest, and you haven't premiered in 2 years, you're probably going to be struggling a little bit.
But it's interesting with the discussion of what is old film and when does a film become old, because usually say you have like 2 years for a film in a festival circuit, then it's an older film or repertoire, I don't know. So one thing, especially working with the more experimental field or more with artists or moving image artists, for example, I often encounter that, for example, I think, I have seen this before, I've seen that. So maybe then people had an installation in a gallery or in a museum and then later on made a film out of it or have a film and make. I mean, as artists, you work sometimes with the same material. So you have to think about, is it a really, really new form, or is it just a 3-channel installation I had in the gallery, which I put together one after the other and submitted as a film? That might be not so creative, but sometimes you really encounter creative works where you know, okay, they have been shown in that gallery, or they have been shown in that museum, or in that other festival, and now it's a feature-length film and it was a short film before. That all happens, and I think don't be shy to use your material. If it's a good material and you're working with this material, don't be shy to use it in different forms and formats, and go ahead with that. And what I also wanted to add is also take care, I mean, most of the people here are probably young filmmakers, but take care of your own back catalog. So if you had a film and it was running at a festival, and then you have a new film, don't forget about the older films, because people or curators for doing retrospective, authoring topical programs, or in a museum somewhere else, people might approach you and ask you like, oh, that film you did 5 years ago, do you still have a file? What are the conditions to show it? Can you answer me? And if you then don't answer the curators for 2 weeks, that film might be off that program or off that idea. But keep in mind that films can or should and will live longer than just 2 years. For example, with The Wall is a Screen, we don't rarely show really current films. We show a lot of films that can be defined as older films, and a lot of festivals in their special programs show a lot of films that can be defined as older films. So I wouldn't say just always focus on the new. Like festivals don't do that always, so I think also it would be wise for filmmakers and artists not always to focus on that.
One question we get asked
no,
just briefly
okay.
is, can we resubmit because we didn't get in last year? I mean, that question gets asked a lot. I mean, you know, it's a tough one because obviously it's been rejected once. You've taken a chance of putting it in again. But then some people do submit without telling us. A couple of times I've spoken to a filmmaker and they said, oh, it's great, we got into the festival. And they said, because we didn't get in last year. I said, oh, was it a different film last year? And she said, no, the film we submitted last year. We didn't get in, so we resubmitted and now we're in. Because obviously it got watched by someone different, or it was fitted or whatever. But then sometimes I see films when I think, hold it, I recognise this film, I must have seen it at another festival or something, and then I kind of check back at Film Freeway and then, oh, it was submitted last year, they didn't get in, they've obviously resubmitted it. But I don't know, it's something I wouldn't really recommend, particularly if you don't get in, keep submitting to the same festival with the same film.
Not unless you've made radical changes.
Yeah,
to it.
Okay, we have the last minutes before Q&A, and well, one of the points that we talked about was to have or not a distribution company, and what is the difference for you as a festival to receive an email or a submission from a filmmaker or from a distribution company if it changes something in your approach and to watch the films. And with this question also I can ask you if which one is the best way to present a film? I mean, to send the emails or just uploading the films and submit the films and stop, because sometimes, well, I received a lot of emails. Can you give me a feedback? Please give me a feedback. I don't have money. Please give me a free waiver. And every day like this are many hours of workplay. And sometimes I think it's nice for, it's useful for directors to have some suggestions about. And yes, this difference. Okay, Flavia.
Well, as I said, yeah, I mean, we're also like a tiny team, so we don't really have time to respond to feedback. Same about resubmissions, like, yeah, we can tell. We can tell if you've submitted without making any differences. Whereas with sales agents, it really depends. I mean, in what regards experimental cinema, there are a couple of, boutiques, I would call them, of renown, like Light Cone or Lux, for example, just to name two of the most famous ones, or Six Pack from Austria, where we know that they have like a very close and very historically grounded approach to what kinds of films they select within their own catalogs. So when we get films from them, it's already kind of a guarantee that they really know what kind of aesthetical and even topical directions that we're going towards. So that being said, we work with a lot of different distributors, of course, and not just these free sales agencies that I mentioned. Sometimes it gives you like a seal of guarantee, if you will. I mean, somebody has already seen these films, that somebody has taken a decision, because there's already like a curatorial decision that the sales agent does first of all before sending you the film. So there is a sense that, you know, somebody's handling the film and they know to place it in your hands, and they are really particular about it. At the same time, you work with also a large variety of people also in sales that are in various points of their career. Some of them are maybe starting out as well, and again, in our case, sending us 20 dramas about a young woman in her 20s that finds out that somebody in her family is sick, or a teenager that is having a conflict with their mom, which is, like, again, really nice, but not necessarily what we're into. So I mean, very much depends, but generally, we have like a very good relationship, and again, it comes with this unspoken idea that it's already been seen for, somebody's vouching for it. So it is helpful, I would have to say.
Yeah, I think with more experimental work, maybe it is good to have that kudos from somewhere like Lux or like. I mean, for us, because we're quite a general festival, I don't know. I don't want to be too negative on distributors, but a lot of the time we wouldn't really be the programmers that are viewing the films wouldn't even know they were from a distributor, because the films get sent in batches to the selection team, who then watch the films, who are not really aware of where they come from. They're just watching the films individually on each individual basis. But obviously we do, we know distributors, we know Square Eyes, we know Raina, we know Me You, and we do have conversations about you sending us films, and we can give discounts and fee waivers to distributors.
Yeah, there's not a one-fit size answer for all
we've
festivals.
had some of your
it's
films
like,
in the past, I think you mentioned.
yeah.
So so I haven't really got too much to add about whether having a distributor is good for us or not. It isn't. It isn't really, but it is. It is. It is. I mean,
it depends. Coming from a distributor, it depends on the festival that you're contacting. Like I said, I generally will send you pretty much everything in our catalogue and say like, hey, are any of these of interest to you? But then if I'm writing to an experimental festival or an animation festival or one that I know is going to focus more on human rights or whatever, then you filter down, you make another filter and only send a certain amount of films as well. So.
Yeah, I'm in the comfortable position as speaking from part of the selection committee or team. I think the good festivals also, like you said, they distribute the films to the selection members in batches, and they don't try to put one distribution batch to one person so that you have to watch like 10 or 20 video data bank films or stuff like that in a row. So that you have also that they look after that in the office already, and it's a very much an anonymized process if you're just in the selection team, and I think that's really good because of course we are quite a diverse selection committee in Kassel, which I really appreciate. Also the festival that is putting that work into having a diverse selection committee. We changed 2 years ago the working language to English because we have non-German speaking selection team members. We have different nationalities, different background, different ages in the selection committee, which of course makes it sometimes a little bit difficult, but that's also what it is about, that everyone brings in their experience. And all these people, of course, have connections and have friends and filmmakers' friends. If you work for some time in the festival circuit, you of course know people, and it never hurts if you write an email to a curator and saying to them, oh look, I submitted my film to this festival, because the films are divided up in batches, and if I know that a person whose films I really like submitted to Kassel, I will check that film out and see which person watches it, and then ask that person about the film, and if they don't want to put it in the second round, because you usually watch films in rounds, and also Kassel doesn't work with pre-selectors. And also in the end, which we did in Kassel, which we did in Oberhausen, and I think a lot of good festivals do that, everyone goes to the list. I mean, it's a hell of a work to go to 600, 800, or sometimes even 1,500 films and names, but every selection member does that and checks, oh, is there a name I recognize, which maybe somebody else didn't, and then you can have the chance to bring the film of that person, or watch it and bring the film of that person back. So, don't push too hard, but if you have connections, use them. I mean, that's also, it's, because it's a lot of films people watch in the selection committees, and it doesn't make the film better, but the attention span of the selection committee members might be more like, oh, I know that person, or I talked to that person, I know this is that film. So I might be a little bit more attentive in the beginning watching that film than I might be if I don't know that person. To be honest, it also works a little bit like that. Yeah.
Okay, I think we have time for a Q&A because I can imagine there are some questions. Sigrid, yeah.
Yes, I have a quick question. It's maybe for Andy. I always think about what type, or I get people ask me sometimes, or young filmmakers ask me, working as a festival, like they ask us for advice on how to think about festival strategy, if you want to say that, or distribution of their films, and how much budget, like how much of their budget they should put aside for distribution. Would you have any like advice for a filmmaker? Think like a general okay film that has potential. And also like if you would have an advice on how much you would put aside for distribution, like how you would also spread it out, like how many festivals would you maybe also advise?
I think if you're doing it yourself, just be realistic, and it's like I said at the beginning, the most important thing is try to work out where your film fits, and don't be tempted by a festival that has a glamour to it that might not be suitable for your film. In terms of how much to spend, I mean, you can spend as much as you've got. I don't know, like I mean, generally for a short film, I don't know, because we generally ask for €200 as a submission budget, which is nothing, and then we tend to use that on like Venice or Cannes that aren't going to give us waivers, and then try to rely on the goodwill of festivals to give waivers, and I guess 90% of the time we're successful with either waivers or at least a discount. But if you're doing it yourself, be prepared to do a lot of work contacting the festivals yourself in the hope that they will say, yeah, just send us a screener, or here's a discount, but also be prepared to spend, I don't know, I mean, the person I was thinking of earlier who does the festival shopping at night on Freeway, he told me that he'd spent €1,500 on submissions before he'd even started with us, which is...
But wouldn't you say that's quite a fair amount of, like realistically, it's not that crazy?
Well, it depends it depends what your budget is. It depends if you're... I think €1,500. I mean, I think €1,500 is a large amount of money to spend on submitting to festival. I don't know.
But if you plan to have a festival, a film being at festivals for 2 years.
Okay.
Submission.
I don't know. I don't know. I just. Maybe I'm the wrong person to ask, because when I hear those figures, it's like, oh, why? Like, I don't know. Is the answer? I honestly don't. I wish I did, but yeah, I've spoken to people who've spent. I think, yeah, €1,500. If it gets your film to festivals, then it's a success. If it doesn't, then it's. But you have to try, don't you? So I don't know. Does that answer the question? Probably not very well. I'm not.
Okay.
I don't know. I would say realistically €500 to €1,000 if you have it. But try to be realistic and really push for waivers, or look for festivals that your film is that fits in, and don't do this thing of like, hey, look, here's the 500 festivals or whatever it is around the world that are Oscar qualifying. I'm going to send them to them, because obviously most of them are in America, and they're just not going to be interested in a weird European hybrid horror film about grief. It's not for an American audience.
No.
Well, of course you never know, but you more or less know.
Yes.
Yes, I have a question probably to Andrew about applications, right?
About
how applications, right? Like how I see there are like 3 ways, right? There's applying yourself, there's applying to medium like Film Freeway, and then there's going through the distributor route. And the first 2 are more or less clear to me. Yourself, I mean, you just do the research yourself. Film Freeway, I mean, you use the medium. Like if you want to go the distributor route, like how do you do your research? Where do you find them? Like what's the process that you...
we find films. It helps that my wife is a programmer for a documentary film festival in Finland, so she's seeing films all the time, and then she'll say, hey, this is interesting, it could fit with us. We get sent a lot of films. You can find us on our website. We meet filmmakers at industry events, on pitching panels, but yeah, just send us the film and we can have a look, and we'll come back with feedback and say, hey, this is great, let's have a conversation and find out if there's a way we can collaborate, or maybe it's not right for us, but we know a sales agent that might be interested in this.
Similar to how you would apply to the festivals, you will do your research, you will find some
we have a conversation with the filmmaker, decide on what their goals are, what we think are the festivals that will fit the film, and then devise the strategy from that. And then I think, so one of the questions that didn't get asked was about doing the distribution yourself or doing it with an agency, and even beyond the fact that we have the contacts and we're not afraid to ask for waivers and all the rest of it. A big part of it, I think, is that you're not by yourself, and that you have support and advice, and that it's not just you by yourself getting these rejections, and that then we can say, hey, this strategy isn't working, maybe then we start to focus on these festivals. There's always, I think that's one of the most important things, that it can get, festival fatigue can get really can start to bring you down. I mean, it even it happens with us. It's like, why isn't this film working? So to do it by yourself is can be quite exhausting.
But I think your question was, how do filmmakers decide which distributor to go with when there's so many?
Both of it, because I haven't been in general thinking a lot about the film distribution side of business, right? So both Anderson's answer is very useful in general, just understand what's the pros and cons of this route. But also, my question was how to find the distributors, and it's similar to how you find the festivals.
Yeah, I guess it's just researching and seeing which.
Right.
As a distributor or sales agent, worked with films that are similar to yours in the past.
Thank you. Both answers are super useful.
Okay.
The practical advice I would give is go to get the online catalog of a festival that does world premieres. So go to the festival of the Cannes Film, website of the Cannes Film Festival, or Locarno, or even Venice, and you will have these contact details. So usually it is on the website. If any given film is represented by a sales agent or a distributor, you do have their email addresses there or their websites. So and a person of contact in many cases. So you can actually just do that, just open 5 trillion tabs on your laptop.
Or you could a quick way to do it, just Google sales agents. Because if you look at the Cannes catalogue, you're not going to find any about them. So.
Yeah. That was just an example, but also if you only Google it, it's like Google SEO optimization, and it brings forward the really big ones that are also harder to get into. So just scroll through festival catalogs, like Feed Marseille, Doc Lisboa, just go wild. Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Clermont-Ferrand is nice too for a video library with a lot of context. Well, I mean, every time I receive something from a distributor company, it's like an agency, like for a novelist, a literary agency. It's like a card, okay. But sometimes I receive there is one distribution company that sends to my festival 60 films every year. I never one film from this distribution company. Maybe sometimes I took films from independent filmmakers, but they submit the films and no emails, nothing. I don't know this person, and the film is good. Well, but at last, with the distribution company, you are sure to have a relationship with the festival, maybe because maybe they already know, and their catalog maybe are good, but it's not, something that changes the life of your film sometimes. Well, sorry, I was just thinking about the experience. And there is another question.
It's quite specific for all of you. I'm finishing right now in film school one documentary, and we had critical evaluation with our professors. And I'm curious about the beginning, because one professor told me it starts like the voiceover of one of participants, and I have 10 seconds of only black and voiceover, and they told me that if it's longer than 5 seconds, no festival will ever, you will be automatically disqualified. disqualified. Now we the beginning credits and it just to kind of sell ourselves from this. But is this a thing or?
No, I don't think so. I think the one thing that should come out of this is that there's no one answer fitting everything for every festival or every film or every premiere. It's some festivals might not like it, others are not going to care.
I would
Maybe
recommend...
it goes back even further. Like I promoted selecting the festival you enter thoroughly, or think about what you want to do with the film. Maybe it's also think about what film school you want to study. Maybe you have to wrong film school, because there are so many different film schools as well. Like there are at least in Germany, there are film schools that are very much focused on industry. They will do television plays later on, and there are art schools which have film departments and stuff like that. So. Don't get irritated if you find yourself by chance in the wrong film school, or if you are in films like in university as well, and you see you go another way. Then I would recommend to go your way and don't be like irritated by the professor.
Also, a lot of times when people were sending also movies, for example, for television, it was the same thing. If it's like at the beginning, they just...
Yeah, television is television. That would be...
But this is also a thing for the festivals, that's why I was very surprised that she told me this. And I was asking some people, nobody knew what to answer.
I mean, on a practical front with credits, it's sometimes better to keep credits short, not have sort of, 2 minutes of credits at the beginning of the film, because you kind of want the film to start. But also I've seen films that have a running time of 20 minutes and then the film finishes at 14 minutes because there's 6 minutes of credits. It's like, oh my god, why is there 6 minutes of credits in this film? So yeah, I think just keep it brief, but yeah, not put endless credits at the beginning of the film because you kind of want the film.
And also think about the...
Sorry?
National Film School presents, but this kind of logo that you need to put at the beginning anyway.
Well, yeah, having a brief...
Not the whole.
Yeah, but I have seen some films that have just these endless credits even at the
And also
start
think...
of the film.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that was it, yeah.
But also that it will affect the length of your film, and then it might disqualify it from a festival that has strict regulations. This is why when I had this film that's 31 minutes that went to Berlinale, I was really annoyed with them that they've made it 31 minutes. It's like, it's going to disqualify you from so many festivals. Keep it under 30 because 2 minutes of it was great. That was the film they wanted to make. So.
But maybe in particular, we get a lot of films that start with a blank screen and voiceover. We're blank screen voiceover central. And in that note, I would say that since it's a very common technique, be very aware of this, right? This is like a general advice, not just in particular about starting on a blank screen with a voiceover, but in general, when you're walking, on a well-trodden terrain, whether it's narratively, whether it's strictly visually or figuratively, be very aware of this. Be very aware that, again, you are showing, first of all, your film to somebody that watches a ridiculous quantity of films, so it really has to pop out. And that's like a general advice about using, again, as I said, things that people might be very exposed to. Like I remember a few years ago, now it's not that present, at least in the films that we get, but 3 or 4 editions ago, I'm not exaggerating, we got at least 100 films that started on a blank screen with a voiceover. And when you see that too much at one point, it just wears off, even though this technique in particular that you're naming is meant to be very emotionally impactful always. So it ends up going lopsided and turning against its head. So be very aware also, and to be aware about this, you need yourself to go to film festivals, not just to get inspired, but also to know what your peers are doing and what you can do differently from your peers while you're making your films as well. I think it's really important also to demystify. It's very easy for us who are, let's say, working professionally in this industry to talk about festivals as if they're these abstract entities with their own rules and workings and so on. But at the end of the day, these institutions are made up of individuals with tastes,
maybe I'm going to really enjoy your film, but my colleague is going to really, really dislike it, and we have to have a discussion about it and so on. It's also important to demystify this idea that the festival is like, I don't know if any of you watch ContraPoints on YouTube. If you know her, she's amazing, and she made this video recently. I'm going on a tangent, apologize. But she was talking, it was an analogy I really loved, and I think it works really well here, that, you know, in transitions of beliefs of people, that you believe that the volcano erupts because there's an angry volcano god that is trying to punish you for some sins, whatever, and now people think that the economy is this angry god within a volcano that explodes. I would also have to say, yeah, there's no angry festival volcano god that decides that your film is going to burn into the lava pits of unwatched films forever, or if it's going to survive the...
Not formally, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm joking.
I don't know if this analogy makes a lot of sense, but yeah.
Well, and sometimes it's worth to have like the big name of the director, write and produce and direct by, like you're a giant of cinema. Is better to not have this. I mean, black screen is better than the huge name, because when I see a film with write and direct by who are you? I don't know, and your name is huge. Like my ego is that is a problem sometimes for a festival. I mean, well. And another questions, or we can finish last one. Okay.
Yeah. So I think a few years ago I heard the myth that perhaps if you have a shorter film, it might be easier to slot into a program, and it might be advantageous to make a film that's shorter instead of a film that's longer, because then it might slot in easier in some programs. And I wanted to know if, in your experience, that's something that anecdotally happens, or is it really just a myth?
I mean, I always say the film's as long as it has to be. Yeah, but I mean, it's not really a myth, but it is a myth, if that makes sense. I mean, obviously, you know, a half an hour film, a 40-minute film has to be something outstanding to get in, because that's a big chunk of the program, of a 90 or 100-minute program, and yeah, 3 10-minute films would fit into that. But if the film needs to be shown, if it's something that you feel is important to include, then it will be included in the program. The longest film we have a 45-minute cut-off at London Short Film Festival. We haven't really shown many 45 films in the 20 years of the festival. We did have one in competition a few years back, but it was a artist, British filmmaker, Sarah Jessica Rinland, who had other work in the festival before, and her work's really strong, so we felt it was an important film to include in the competition, even though it was 45 minutes. But yeah, it's kind of a myth, but not a myth. I don't know if you've got anything else to add to that.
Sarah Jessica's wonderful. First thing to add. Second thing, in my experience with programming, is usually your audience is going to get really tired after the 4th film. And after the 5th film, it's almost impossible. It's like, it's too much, and there's too many shifts. And of course, it took me many years of working, and again, shifting from a predominantly young audience that is more, let's say, capable of taking into a lot of films, it also really depends on your audience, but mainly I would say you're generally not going to be able to sustain a short film screening that is longer than 2 hours. But even so, even if it's 2 hours, if in those 2 hours I see 15 short films, what am I going to remember? Am I not just setting the films that I select up to fail? This is also a very important part of the puzzle of programming when you compose your programs, is also knowing, okay, is this going to be the first film in the program? Is this going to be the middle film, second to last one? How do I structure it? How do I make a harmonium of the films that it's almost like composing a chord, thinking about it musically, really. You have all of these notes that you have to fit in together, and the sound at the end has to be strong and has to work, right? So, in that sense, I would answer your question that it doesn't matter what your length is, to the degree that, again, I am not going to spam my audience with too many films in one program, and it has to work together with other works.
So intrinsically, this is the format. And there's other festivals and there's curated approaches, of course, that go about differently to the way they show short films. Maybe they pair it with a feature film, and that's not an uncommon thing in a lot of festivals. But generally, your film is not going to be shown by itself. Well, maybe it's going to be shown by itself if you go and present it in a university, maybe. Or there's actually not that many places where it's playing by itself. So that's always something to keep into mind, that it has to go together with something else. And that also might have an impact on the duration. But again, it depends on your story, it depends on your style, it depends on really what you're interested in. Just, try to work with an editor. That's always like an advice I give to anybody, no matter the genre and approach they have. It's really important to have a film editor next to you. Even if you end up editing the film yourself, I really believe it's important to have this.
Our low budget making program this year at Festival had 25 films in, I think, but these are all very, very short films, again, similar to what Hamburg does with the 3-minute quickie. Is that a single program, the 3-minute quickie?
It's called now the Short Axel, I think, and it's one program.
Yeah.
So, but that's
But they're fun programs because they're very quick,
Yeah.
sort of like next one. Although we don't have a time limit on that program, some of them could be 6 minutes, some of them could be 1 minute, some of them could be 2 minutes.
But more often than these are like exceptions, and it's a convention. You go to this kind of program and you know you're going to watch.
Yeah.
But generally, it's
Okay, I don't know if we have time for a last question, or maybe it's very fast and it's last.
How often is it that film festivals invite the international filmmakers to actually come to their festival, and how often do they maybe cover the expenses of the filmmaker to come?
Again, an impossible. It depends on the festival. It depends on the competition. It depends on the region, their funding. There's so many variables that it's hard to give a number. I think with short film festivals, it's probably less. I mean, I might be completely wrong, but I get the impression that short film festivals, because they're showing so many films, you're less likely to be invited. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest and say London is not possible for us to book, 300 hotel rooms in London. We don't have those kind of budgets or that kind of sponsorship. So no, we can't offer any accommodation to filmmakers to attend. We have helped filmmakers with letters to their embassies before, which is something we did this year with some filmmakers. We also had a bit of a room scheme before, where filmmakers want to get in touch and we can put them in touch with someone that wants to host a filmmaker. That's worked quite well in the past. But it depends on the festival, where it is and what their budget is. If that makes sense.
It's not impossible, but our filmmakers, the filmmakers that we work with that generally get invited to festivals are for feature documentaries. We do have some short filmmakers that go to festivals as well.
Also, you have to be quite aware of what invitation means. I mean, there's the invitation of, you can come, and there's the invitation of, we subsidize your travel with that amount of money, and you have to see how you travel, how you spend that money by yourself. And a lot of festivals, for Kassel, for example, they offer private accommodation. So you're staying in somebody's houses or WG rooms or stuff. So if you're eager to put up with that for 2 or 3 days with really nice local people, and get some substitution for the travel, and that also depends on the countries, like countries who have a bigger industry, for example, where you can get money from the local film funds, for example, or countries where there's no such film industry, where the festivals put more money to you for travel, also countries that are further away. So I would say most of the festivals are quite eager to have the filmmakers, that I work for, are quite eager to have the filmmakers there and try to make everything possible, but they can't invite everyone, pay the travel and the hotel for everyone. However, it is about conversation, about filmmakers meeting, about filmmakers being able to present their films, talk about their films with the audience, but as well with other filmmakers, but as well with the curators. So a lot of festivals will try to do as much as they can to have you there. So yeah, also look at that maybe, or try to find out about these things beforehand, also talking to each other, networking between yourselves, joining forces also. Also regarding distribution, joining forces is a good thing, so why not, if there's no distribution in your country, just create a distribution company yourself. One art school in Hamburg did that some years ago, you know. It's a little bit also up to you and the energy you have and you want to put in the films.
No, that captures everything.
Okay.
Our festival, what we do is like we have a flat rate for filmmakers from Europe, unfortunately, and that's pretty heartbreaking that we cannot, due to budget restraints, cover the travel fees of people who are not from Europe. And it's particularly horrible because this continent is so colonialist and so hegemonic. It's an unfortunate economic reality for us that we cannot cover these tickets. But yeah, for filmmakers who are based in Europe, we have like a flat fee, and you can usually cover like a Wizz Air, or a Raina or something. It's gonna get you through, of course.
Okay, I think we've finished, and well, thank you to all, thank you to our panelists. And good luck to all the filmmakers. Yeah. See you around.
Time flies.
Time flies when you're having fun.
I will be rewatching the tape. I hate seeing myself too, like, but I skip myself and listen to the tape. Yeah.
When is your festival?
We are last week of September.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We used to be in November, but after all, the pandemic was horrible for November slot. Also, there was another Christmas lights, so